Good day, I'm Rocky, and today we're talking about do-it-yourself Njord RDA to RSA conversion. The task isn't difficult. It requires drilling 2 additional holes or ports into the Njord, one to allow fluid to come through the positive pin nipple and flood the deck, and the other in the bottom of the second well to allow fluid to flood in and feed the upper wick. The path through our conversion will first start with disassembly and identification of parts. Then we'll move to measurements and making a big decision on how to proceed. We'll take a look at the tools and then the procedure. First for the nipple and then for the second juice well. Afterwards we will reassemble the new Njord RSA and run a short wicking and coil preparation at the end. Once you remove the standard 510 pin from the bottom of the Njord, you're going to be left with 3 original parts. The O-ring seal that went over the 510 pin, the peak insulator, and the positive post. Take note that the positive post has a nipple on the bottom of it which falls into a recess for the peak insulator, and you'll need to find yourself a new squonk pin, and most likely, if it's not a perfect match, you will have to trim it down so it fits flush coming into the well. If you measure from the top to the bottom of the nipple for the positive post, you'll get about 4 millimeters. And then, if you measure the depth of the nipple where the 510 pin goes in, you'll get about 3.8. That leaves a pretty thin 0.2 millimeter thickness for that cap. But you also have to consider that the threads do not go all the way to the bottom of that threaded portion of the nipple. They actually stop about 1 millimeter out. So we have 2 decisions to make here. One about the nipple, the other about the 510 squonk pin. If we drill straight through the top of the nipple, that's going to leave us a juice well depth of 3.5 millimeters after squonking, that amount of fluid left. If we shave it off, even with the top of the positive post where it's lying on the deck, we'll end up with about 2 millimeters depth of juice. Either way, we still have to deal with the unthreaded portion of the nipple where the original 5-pin threads stop. If you're happy with finding a squonk pin that fits just right and you don't mind that extra unthreaded space, then we're good to go. If you want the pin to rise to the top of that nipple, an unshaved nipple, then we're going to have to find a way to thread it. My answer to that was to use a stainless steel squonk pin that I got from mod makers in the UK, and to slowly turn it in and turn it out and use it as a threading device to get through the nipple completely, so that the new squonk pin would not only fully engage the original threads but also the additional ones that I created with the stainless steel pin. These attachments were used with a handheld Dremel tool. What's not shown is a handheld drill and a 1/16 inch drill bit that I used to initially put the hole in the top of the nipple for the positive post and at the bottom of the second juice well. The cutoff wheel was not used to cut anything, but rather to shave down the new squonk pin. I chose not to cut it off in one whack because I couldn't put it back on if it was wrong. But I could shave it down a little at a time, check the fit, and stopped when it was right for me. The cone shape tool was used to widen out the holes after they were initially made, and to bevel the nipple so that the squonk pin would come through cleaner. And the round cutting bit, this is a metal bit, was used to remove metal at the base of the second juice well. With any of these, be very careful. Handheld Dremel tool will get away from you. Wear eye protection and rubber gloves if needed. The last thing you want is a sliver of metal in your skin, or at the worst, in your eye. Now let's take a look at the actual procedures. I started by drilling a hole through the center of the top of the nipple on the positive post with a 1/16 inch drill bit. I used a 1/16 inch drill bit because I did not want to damage the threads inside of the nipple. Once done there, I used his cone-shaped diamond cutter to bevel out the hole and help remove some of that unthreaded metal inside of the positive post. After that, I used a stainless steel 510 pin I got from mod makers in the UK to slowly turn in and add additional threads cut through that unthreaded portion of the positive pin. Now let's turn our attention to the second juice well. I used the same 1/16 inch drill bit to establish a hole at the very base of that second juice well, as the floor of that juice well and the deck are on the same level. I then took the cone-shaped diamond etching tool or cutting tool and beveled the hole going into the second well. I did that so that the metal cutting tool wasn't as likely to bounce around and scar up the inside. That metal cutting tool, by the way, is a 3 millimeter in diameter, and I used that to go completely through the wall of the second well into it, and also I moved it back and forth at the base and ended up creating an arch-shaped hole, flat on the bottom and arched on the top. I placed tape around it, around the shaft, so that it wouldn't scar up the top of the juice well on the opposite side, as you can see from the angle that I had to use to get into it. Now that we've finished the surgery portion and the cleanup of the parts, we're ready to start reassembly. First, we want to place the O-ring in the bottom of the cutout for the positive post. If you should need a replacement O-ring, it is 3 by 1 millimeter nitrile O-ring assortment that came from Harbor Freight. They're a good source of spare parts. Next, you'll want to put your squonk pin in, keeping the ring centered around the pin and in place. Next comes the peak insulator, flat side down, right over the top of the squonk pin and the installed O-ring. With the peak insulator in place, we can now set the positive post down on top of it and screw the squonk pin into the bottom. Take care not to over tighten. Tighten it up until it stops, maybe an eighth or a quarter turn more. That's as secure as it needs to be, as there is no stress on that positive post. So there we go, all back together and ready to put a coil in it and wick it up, juice it up, and vape it. I am a big fan of hand-hammered flat wire coils like Morton Owen uses. And when I start to make a coil, after I hammer it out, I will wrap it and then put it on a separate deck to adjust and glow in before I proceed further. Once I have that coil to my liking, I'll then take it out of the deck and bend the legs at 90 degrees to each other. Then I will take those legs and turn them 90 degrees counterclockwise in preparation for wicking. Yes, I wick my coils before I install them. That allows me to wick harder and also maintains the form of the coil after it's installed. I don't end up deforming the coil trying to wick it in place. I leave the legs of the coil a little bit long so that I can use the excess to adjust the bottom and the top of the coil for centering before I lock it down. The bottom wick is pulled and trimmed to fit inside the well opposite of the second juice well, and the top wick is drooped over the top of the second juice well down the outside and trimmed even with the bottom seal for the cap. After that, it's a matter of just stuffing it down in the well, not too tight, but making sure it reaches the bottom. So there you have it, how to convert a Njord RDA into the Njord RSA. At the time of this video, and to the best of my knowledge, there are only 2 Njord RSAs in existence, mine and one owned by Morton Ewan. I want to thank Morton for his concept and pushing to have this Njord made. I think it is an outstanding Addy, and if you spend the time with it, learn how it works, study its different personalities, you'll find that it is an excellent vape. So that's all I have for now. If you like the video, please subscribe. There'll be more to follow. And as always, be safe and have yourself a vape day.